There exists within every person a profound mystery that most will never dare to explore. The human mind operates on multiple levels simultaneously, yet we navigate through life aware of only the thinnest surface layer of our psychological reality. What drives your deepest fears? What compels you toward certain people while repelling you from others? Why do particular symbols, stories, and images resonate with something ancient within you, stirring emotions you cannot name? The answers lie not in modern psychology textbooks or contemporary self-improvement strategies. They rest in the revolutionary discoveries of a man who ventured into territories of the human psyche that others feared to acknowledge existed. This man understood that beneath our everyday consciousness flows an immense river of psychological material that shapes every decision, every relationship, every moment of suffering, and every glimpse of meaning we experience. You believe your thoughts originate from your personal history. You assume your emotions stem from your individual experiences. You imagine your desires emerge from your unique personality. Yet these assumptions barely scratch the truth of what moves through you every moment of your existence. Forces far older than your personal memories guide your choices. Patterns established across millennia of human experience play out through your daily life. You are simultaneously an individual and a vessel through which humanity itself continues to evolve and express its deepest nature. Consider for a moment the last time you felt an inexplicable attraction or repulsion. The last time you acted in ways that surprised even yourself. The last time you recognized a pattern repeating in your life despite your conscious efforts to change. These moments reveal the presence of something vast operating beneath your awareness. This hidden dimension of mind does not belong to you alone, yet it influences you more powerfully than any conscious intention you hold. The man who mapped these territories understood that human suffering stems not primarily from external circumstances, but from our disconnection from these deeper layers of our being. He recognized that modern civilization, with all its technological advances and social structures, had created a devastating split between conscious awareness and the profound depths of human nature. This split manifests as anxiety, depression, meaninglessness, and the endless repetition of destructive patterns that plague contemporary existence. What makes his insights particularly relevant now is that we live in an era of unprecedented psychological fragmentation. Never before have humans been so disconnected from the natural rhythms that once organized psychological life. Never before have we been so isolated from the mythological and symbolic frameworks that once provided meaning and context for human experience. We float in a sea of information while drowning in a desert of wisdom. We connect digitally to thousands while feeling profoundly alone with ourselves. This condition is not accidental. It results from centuries of prioritizing rational thought over intuitive wisdom, external achievement over internal development, material accumulation over spiritual depth. The consequence is a civilization of individuals who know more facts than any generation before them, yet understand less about the fundamental nature of their own being. Within you right now exist layers of consciousness that extend far beyond your personal biography. These layers contain the accumulated wisdom and trauma of your ancestors, the fundamental patterns that have shaped human behavior since our species emerged, and the potential for transformation that remains largely untapped in most people. These are not metaphors or poetic descriptions. They represent observable psychological realities that manifest in dreams, in spontaneous imagery, in the symbols that captivate us, and in the behavioral patterns we cannot seem to escape. Every human being carries within themselves what can be understood as a vast psychological inheritance. Just as your body contains genetic information passed down through countless generations, your psyche contains patterns, images, and potentials that connect you to the entire history of human consciousness. This inheritance operates continuously beneath the threshold of awareness, influencing whom you love, what you fear, how you respond to challenges, and what gives your life meaning. The implications of this understanding revolutionize how we approach psychological health and human development. Rather than viewing mental distress as merely personal dysfunction requiring correction, we begin to see it as often representing a disconnection from these deeper layers of being. Rather than pursuing happiness as an end goal, we recognize the necessity of engaging with difficult psychological material as part of becoming whole. Rather than avoiding discomfort, we understand that certain forms of suffering serve as invitations to growth and integration. This perspective challenges everything contemporary culture teaches about success and fulfillment. It suggests that the endless pursuit of external validation and achievement, far from leading to satisfaction, actually increases our alienation from authentic being. It reveals that many of our society, as most celebrated values, may actually be defense mechanisms against encountering the depths of our own nature. Within these depths lives everything you have rejected about yourself in order to become acceptable to others. Every quality you despise in other people has a corresponding element within your own psyche that you have refused to acknowledge. Every judgment you make about the world reveals something about your own inner landscape that remains unconscious. This hidden dimension of personality operates like a shadow cast by your conscious identity, growing larger and more influential the more you deny its existence. The shadow contains not only negative qualities, but also positive potentials that you have disowned. Perhaps you learned early that being too intelligent, too creative, too passionate, or too authentic threatened your belonging, so you buried these qualities along with your anger, selfishness, and aggression. The shadow holds everything deemed unacceptable by your family, culture, or personal standards. Yet this rejected material does not disappear. It continues to live within you, influencing your life from the darkness of unconsciousness. When you encounter someone who triggers an intense emotional reaction, you are often meeting an aspect of your own shadow projected onto them. When you find yourself repeatedly sabotaging your own success or happiness, your shadow may be asserting its influence. When you experience sudden eruptions of emotion or behavior that seem foreign to your usual personality, you are witnessing the shadow breaking through your conscious defenses. The process of recognizing and integrating shadow material represents one of the most challenging yet essential aspects of psychological development. It requires admitting that you are not who you pretend to be. It demands acknowledging capacities for both destruction and creation that you would prefer to deny. It means taking responsibility for aspects of yourself that you have spent your entire life trying to disown. Yet this confrontation with the shadow also represents an opportunity for tremendous psychological liberation. The energy required to maintain the split between conscious identity and shadow material exhausts psychological resources that could otherwise be available for creative expression and authentic relationship. The projection of shadow onto others creates endless conflict and misunderstanding. The denial of shadow ensures that you remain controlled by forces you refuse to acknowledge. Integration does not mean acting out every shadow impulse or identifying with negative qualities. It means developing conscious relationship with these aspects of your nature so they no longer control you from the unconscious. It means recognizing that wholeness includes both light and dark, that authentic humanity encompasses the full spectrum of human potential rather than just the socially acceptable portion. This work cannot be accomplished through intellectual understanding alone. The shadow speaks through the body, through dreams, through slips of tongue, and unconscious gestures. It reveals itself in what triggers you, what attracts you, what repulses you. Learning to recognize these communications requires developing a different kind of attention, one that notices not just what you think, but how you feel, not just what you say, but what you do. Not just what you remember, but what you forget. The journey towards psychological wholeness involves more than just shadow work. It encompasses what can be understood as a fundamental reorganization of personality around a deeper center than the ego. This process unfolds naturally in some individuals, but requires conscious participation to reach its full potential. It involves the progressive integration of unconscious contents, the resolution of internal conflicts, and the development of a relationship with transpersonal dimensions of existence. This journey typically begins with a crisis that shatters the illusion of ego sufficiency. Perhaps a relationship ends, a career collapses, a health crisis emerges, or an existential emptiness becomes unbearable. These experiences, while painful, serve an essential function. They break open the rigid structures of personality that have become too narrow to contain the fullness of who you are becoming. They force attention inward toward neglected aspects of being. As this process unfolds, you begin to encounter dimensions of yourself previously unknown. You discover capacities you did not know you possessed. You find strength in what seemed like weakness, wisdom in what appeared as confusion. You recognize that many of your most cherished beliefs about yourself and the world were defensive constructions rather than ultimate truths. This transformation does not proceed linearly. It involves periods of confusion, regression, and apparent stagnation. Sometimes you must revisit old wounds with new understanding. Sometimes you must surrender achievements that no longer serve your development. Sometimes you must endure the dissolution of identity itself as you transition between who you were and who you are becoming. The goal is not perfection, but wholeness. Not the elimination of struggle, but the capacity to engage struggle creatively. Not the absence of darkness, but the ability to carry your darkness consciously. This represents a fundamentally different vision of psychological health than that promoted by mainstream culture. It acknowledges that certain forms of suffering are inherent to human existence, and that attempts to eliminate all discomfort ultimately increase suffering. Dreams provide one of the most direct paths into these deeper dimensions of psyche. Every night, consciousness descends into a realm where the usual rules of logic and causality dissolve. In this space, the psyche speaks its native language of image and symbol, revealing truths that rational mind cannot grasp. Yet most people treat their dreams as meaningless noise, missing the guidance they offer. The images that appear in dreams are not random. They emerge from the same deep sources that have produced humanity's great myths and religious symbols. When you dream of descending into underground spaces, you participate in an ancient pattern of psychological descent and potential rebirth. When you dream of animals, you encounter instinctual energies seeking recognition. When you dream of unknown figures who seem strangely familiar, you meet aspects of your own nature awaiting integration. Learning to work with dreams requires patience and humility. A psyche will not be forced to reveal its secrets on demand. It responds to genuine interest and respect. It rewards attention with gradually increasing clarity. Over time, patterns emerge. Symbols repeat and evolve. A dialogue develops between conscious and unconscious dimensions of mind that enriches both. This dialogue extends beyond personal psychology. Through dreams and active imagination, you access layers of psyche that connect you to broader human experience. You encounter what can be understood as universal patterns of human development and transformation. These patterns, present across all cultures and historical periods, reveal the fundamental structures of human consciousness itself. The hero who must leave home and face trials before returning transformed. The wise figure who appears at crucial moments to offer guidance. The dark forest where one becomes lost before finding a new path. The death and rebirth that marks major life transitions. These are not merely stories, but psychological realities that play out in every human life. Recognizing these patterns in your own experience connects you to the larger human story of which your individual life forms one unique expression. These archetypal patterns serve as internal guides through life's challenges. When you find yourself in the metaphorical dark forest of confusion and loss, remembering that countless others have walked this path before you provides both comfort and direction. When you encounter the inner critic that seems determined to undermine your every effort, recognizing it as a universal human experience rather than personal failure changes your relationship to it. When you feel called to adventure beyond your comfort zone, understanding this as participation in the eternal, hero's journey gives courage and meaning to the fear that naturally arises. Yet modern life provides little support for this kind of deep psychological work. We are encouraged to remain busy, distracted, externally focused. We are taught to medicate discomfort rather than learn from it. We are pressured to maintain appearances rather than explore authentic being. The very structures of contemporary society seem designed to prevent the kind of introspection necessary for psychological development. This is not accidental. A society of psychologically mature individuals would not tolerate many of the systems and structures that currently organize collective life. It would demand meaning over profit, depth over surface, authenticity over conformity. The forces that benefit from keeping humanity psychologically adolescent have every incentive to discourage the kind of inner work that leads to genuine autonomy and wisdom. Yet the psyche cannot be permanently suppressed. What is denied conscious expression will find other outlets. The epidemic levels of anxiety, depression, and addiction in developed nations represent the return of the repressed on a collective scale. The fascination with superhero myths, fantasy worlds, and virtual realities reveals a hunger for the mythological and symbolic dimensions of experience that rationalist culture has eliminated. The way forward does not involve returning to pre-modern consciousness, but integrating the achievements of rational development with renewed connection to depth dimensions of psyche. This requires individual courage and collective wisdom. It demands that we question fundamental assumptions about the nature of reality, consciousness, and human potential. It asks us to consider that many of our most intractable problems stem not from insufficient control, but from disconnection from sources of wisdom within our own nature. The transformation begins with individuals willing to undertake their own psychological work. Each person who commits to this process contributes to collective evolution. Each shadow made conscious reduces the projection and blame that fuel conflict. Each dream honored strengthens the bridge between conscious and unconscious. Each pattern recognized and integrated increases the sum of available wisdom. This work is not easy. It requires facing everything you have spent your life avoiding. It demands surrendering illusions that have provided comfort and identity. It asks you to tolerate uncertainty, ambiguity, and paradox. It offers no guarantee of conventional success or happiness. What it provides instead is something far more valuable, the opportunity to become who you truly are, rather than who you were conditioned to be. The implications extend beyond personal psychology. As more individuals undertake this work, new possibilities emerge for collective organization. Relationships become more authentic and creative. Communities develop greater capacity for handling diversity and conflict. Institutions begin to serve genuine human needs rather than perpetuating themselves. Culture evolves to support rather than suppress psychological development. None of this happens automatically. It requires conscious choice and sustained effort. It demands that we value psychological development as highly as we currently value technological progress. It asks us to recognize that outer achievements mean little if they come at the cost of inner impoverishment. It invites us to consider that the next stage of human evolution may be psychological rather than technological. The seeds of this transformation already exist within you. The same forces that created your wounds also contain the potential for healing. The patterns that limit you also point toward liberation. The dreams you dismiss as meaningless offer maps to undiscovered territories of self. The shadow you fear to acknowledge holds energy needed for wholeness. Recognition marks the beginning. Once you see how unconscious forces shape your life, you cannot return to innocent ignorance. Once you recognize the shadow's influence, you become responsible for it. Once you understand that dreams carry wisdom, you must choose whether to listen. Once you glimpse the possibility of wholeness, fragmentation becomes increasingly intolerable. This places you at a crossroads. You can continue living as you have, maintaining familiar patterns despite their limitations. Or you can begin the difficult work of psychological development, knowing it will transform everything you thought you knew about yourself and your world. Neither choice is wrong, but only one leads to the full realization of human potential. The journey toward wholeness is ultimately a solitary path that paradoxically connects you more deeply to others. As you integrate your own shadow, you become less likely to project it onto others. As you develop relationship with your own depths, you recognize those depths in people around you. As you heal your own wounds, you develop genuine capacity to support others' healing. This is not about becoming perfect or special. It is about becoming real. It is about allowing the full spectrum of human experience to flow through you consciously rather than unconsciously. It is about participating in the ancient human journey of psychological development with awareness rather than blindly stumbling through patterns established by unconscious forces. The tools exist. The maps have been drawn. The path has been walked by countless individuals throughout history. What remains is your decision to begin. Not tomorrow, not when circumstances are perfect, not when you feel ready. The psyche does not wait for permission. It continues its work, whether you participate consciously or not. The only question is whether you will remain its unconscious puppet or become its conscious partner. Every moment offers an opportunity to notice what moves beneath the surface of awareness. Every interaction provides material for understanding projection and shadow. Every dream extends an invitation to dialogue with deeper dimensions of being. Every crisis contains seeds of transformation. Every pattern that repeats asks to be recognized and integrated. The work never truly ends. Each integration reveals new material to be processed. Each expansion of consciousness illuminates previously hidden territories. Each development in individual psychology contributes to collective evolution. This is not a burden, but an adventure. Not a problem, but an opportunity. Not a sentence, but an invitation to participate consciously in the ongoing creation of human consciousness.